Thank you for joining us today as Pitzer College once again demonstrates how change begins and what a mindful future looks like. I want to welcome our trustees, students, alumni, faculty, staff, parents, friends, and, of course, members of the media. Now, in addition to this, there's someone special here today, Nancy Sutley. She has just retired as chair of the White House Council on Environmental Quality, and I want to give her a big shout out and welcome home. Last week, the host of NPR's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me spoke about a new United Nations report that says the climate change apocalypse isn't just coming, it's already upon us. When news of the report broke, he said, people of the world instantly awoke, quote, from their lazy, there's nothing we can do attitude, to a more aggressive, well, it's too late to do anything stance. Well, we're here today to say it's not too late to do something. In fact, it's time to do many somethings. At Pitzer, our school motto is Proida Futuri, which means mindful of the future, or as one of my students put it, apathies for losers. Pitzer was founded in the 1960s, not exactly a status quo time, and that challenge authority spirit is still very much part of our identity. Let me tell you, it's a fun place to be president. In the early 70s, we were among the first institutions in higher education to actually start teaching about the environment and sustainability. And in the 80s, we were among the first colleges to divest from South Africa. Today, 50 years after Pitzer College first opened its doors, all construction on campus is LEED rated, either platinum or gold certified, even the president's house, and 25% of Pitzer's energy comes from renewable resources. Our gray water system keeps things green, saving almost 200,000 gallons annually. And over the last decade, we have reduced our water consumption by over 50%. Last month, we were named #1 greenest college in the country, a wonderful present for our 50th birthday. And while we've accomplished a lot, there's a lot more that we have to do. Climate change is not just an inconvenient truth. It's an indisputable truth as well. You know the statistics, the hottest year on record, the longest fire season, the worst drought in California's history, the highest ocean levels, and the ever-shrinking Arctic ice. The overwhelming majority of scientists are in agreement. We refuse to accept a diagnosis of doomsday, even if it comes from NPR. We also refuse to do business as usual. That's been true since our start. So it should not come as a surprise that we're announcing today our commitment to a wide-ranging and visionary integrated climate change action plan, the first college in California to do so. And we're issuing an invitation to our sister institutions in higher education. Come join the party. It's so much fun to do the right thing. This year, we've been celebrating our birthday. And a little over a year ago, we announced the establishment of the Robert Redford Conservancy of Southern California Sustainability and publicly launched our 50 Forward campaign, the largest in our history. I'm thrilled to also announce today that we've met our goal of raising $50 million so we can better support our students and our faculty and to continue to build our shared future. And I can't think of a better way to celebrate than with this event, continuing our tradition of unconventional accomplishments, audacious ideas, and student-initiated change. Students, faculty, staff, and families, and trustees are drawn to Pitzer because they believe in our core values of environmental sustainability, social responsibility, and student engagement in college governance. We owe them authenticity. We owe them chutzpah. We're together today because of this positive and unique collaboration. And I want to thank all of the members of the Climate Change Action Group who are here with us. Would you please stand up, those of you who worked on this plan, who are in the audience, and so we can also recognize you. Poet Gary Schneider wrote, "Find your place on the planet. Dig in and take responsibility from there." So that's exactly what we're doing today. We're digging in, we're rolling up our sleeves, and dreaming of a better future. Now, joining me today, our speakers include Don Gould, a longtime member of the Pitzer College Board of Trustees and chair of the Investment Committee, as well as chair of the board's Climate Change Working Group. Also, Pitzer Professor of Environmental Analysis and Water Policy expert Brenda Sarathy, author of Partnerships for Empowerment and Participatory Research for Community-Based Natural Resource Management, as well as Pineros, Latino Labor and the Changing Face of Forestry, and Pitzer Senior, Jess Grady-Benson, a double major in environmental analysis and music, a Udall scholar, and the leader of the Claremont College's fossil fuel divestment campaign. And then someone who might just look a little familiar to you, Pitzer College trustee Robert Redford. A little bit about Bob. To the world...
Not too much.
All right, I'm not going to talk about the vodka. All right, it's all good. To the world, he wears many different faces. Academy Award-winning film director, producer, businessman, environmentalist, philanthropist, and actor. And he's currently starring in the #1 box office film on the planet, Captain America. Now, I've spent the last week traveling to Asia, so I haven't seen his latest film, but I hear he's very wicked in this one. But that's okay by me. I like wicked. I like wicked cool. He created the Sundance Institute to actively advance the work of filmmakers and storytellers worldwide, as well as to provide an intellectual space where artists, scientists, policymakers, even college presidents can meet to discuss solutions to our greatest challenges and past failures. He is an unrepentant agitator, the smartest guy in the room, deaf and defiant to naysayers, and my very funny, kind, and extraordinary friend. Now, let's dive in and let's talk a little bit about Pitzer College's bold plan. Don Gould?
Thank you, President Trombley. I'm honored and excited to share with you today Pitzer College's Divestment and Climate Action Plan. Before I get into the specifics, though, I would like to give a little background on how we arrived at this moment. I think the process itself is instructive, and it says a lot about Pitzer College. Pitzer prides itself in being a true community, one where all constituencies have a voice in the college's policy and direction. The actions that we announced today were spurred by the students' voice, and specifically a group of engaged students who passionately seek a better future for themselves and for the generations that follow. So last October, the Board of Trustees formed a working group to consider divestment and climate-related issues. The working group included students, faculty, staff, and trustees. For 5 months, we researched, analyzed, debated, and listened, all leading us to this day when we announce the following actions. First, Pitzer College will divest its endowment of substantially all fossil fuel stocks by the end of this year. Second, we will institute a formal process for incorporating environmental, social, and governance considerations into endowment investment policy going forward. Third, we will establish the Pitzer Sustainability Fund as a sub-fund of our general endowment. It will be made up exclusively of investments designed to promote sustainability. Donors to the college will now have the option of designating their gifts for the Sustainability Fund. Fourth, we have set an ambitious goal to reduce the college's own carbon footprint by 25% from current levels by the end of 2016. Our plan for doing so is already taking shape and includes major steps to replace fossil fuels with renewable energy sources, as well as innovative measures to cut energy consumption. And finally, we are establishing a campus sustainability task force to ensure that Pitzer remains at the forefront in promoting sustainability, both in our words and in our actions. Taken together, we believe that this 5-part plan sets a new standard for climate action in higher education. In closing, I would like to address why Pitzer College is divesting from fossil fuel companies. And I think the reasons can be summarized in 2 words: values and leadership. Divestment is about aligning our actions with our values. Environmental sustainability and social responsibility have been Pitzer hallmarks throughout our 50-year history. We envision a future substantially less dependent on fossil fuels. We can no longer reconcile that vision with an endowment that seeks to profit from investment in those same fossil fuels. The second word is leadership. Institutions of higher learning enjoy a unique position of influence in our society. But with that influence comes a responsibility to weigh in on the most important issues of our time, and none more so than climate change. Today we take our stand, we cast our vote, we lead. In taking the difficult but necessary step of divestment, Pitzer College both joins and leads a collective action that will in time alter the public discourse on climate change. May our actions today inspire others to join with us in this all-important fight. Thank you.
Less than a month ago, the premier scientific body for assessing climate change, the IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, released their 5th report. Their findings are sobering and alarming. The scientific community can assert with a very high level of confidence that impacts from climate extremes, such as heat waves, droughts, cyclones, and wildfires, are serious threats to various natural ecosystems and numerous human settlements. These impacts, moreover, only exacerbate already existing inequalities produced by processes of uneven development. Anthropogenic climate change, change caused by humans, is the defining crisis of multiple generations, both ours and those in the future. And yet, we're not responding fast enough in the face of this crisis, either in the global arena or at the level of national policy regulation. Given this policy gridlock and a lack of political vision from above, other players have entered to take the lead, with a few higher education institutions at the forefront. Of course, when we think of colleges and universities, we expect them to affirm the value of sound research as central to their mission. But we cannot simply stop there. Research should lead to meaningful action. It is not enough to just walk the walk. We have to walk the walk. It is not just enough to talk the talk. I feel very fortunate to have played a role in our institutional commitment to address climate change. Pitzer's bold and ambitious climate action model provides leadership for a more sustainable future. Our decision today to divest from fossil fuels, reinvest in sustainable alternatives, and significantly reduce our carbon footprint reflects our deeply held values around social justice and environmental sustainability. In taking comprehensive climate action, we have implicitly allied ourselves with communities that have been detrimentally impacted by fossil fuels extraction and production, who are also mobilizing for more sustainable futures. Some have already started to bear the burden of the climate crisis, while others have had the luxury, afforded by privilege, to defer the brunt of impacts for a longer period. But at the end of the day, we are all in this together, on our only home afloat in the universe, and it is imperative that we act now. I thank Pitzer's administration and its board of trustees for their willingness to engage with us in this process, and I'm absolutely thrilled with this outcome. And finally, deep gratitude to the students spearheading the movement for climate justice. You brought us to the table and are taking the reins to address the crisis of our generation and those to come. Thank you.
In the fall of 2012, Hurricane Sandy struck the East Coast with unprecedented force, leaving my family's home without power for over 10 days and destroying communities from Haiti to New England. This disaster was a brutal wake-up call to the current and severe consequences of the climate crisis. As these impacts continue to disproportionately affect marginalized communities globally, climate change is no longer merely an issue of carbon concentrations, but a dire threat to social justice. 3 weeks following Sandy, I worked with Pomona students Kai Orens and Megan Tokunaga to organize a group of 75 Claremont College's students to attend the Do the Math tour, where prominent activists such as Van Jones, Naomi Klein, and Bill McKibben urged action on the climate crisis. Immediately following, we ignited the Claremont College's fossil fuel divestment campaign, united with a growing international movement now spanning over 560 campaigns worldwide. Despite overwhelming consensus among climate scientists on the reality of anthropogenic climate change, Pitzer's previous climate action had not yet matched the scale of the crisis. While our institutional values proclaim commitments to social and environmental responsibility, our endowment remained invested in the fossil fuel industry. Thus, our education was funded by an industry whose business practices are inconsistent with a just and sustainable future. Driven by a vision for collective liberation and climate justice, the Claremont College's divestment campaign has urged Pitzer to take a stand against the disproportionate impacts of climate change and the inequity perpetuated by the fossil fuel industry. Over the past year and a half, the student campaign, supported by alumni, faculty, and staff, has dedicated countless hours of work to educational campaigns, creative actions, formal reports, and negotiation with the Board of Trustees. And I'm so proud to have so many members of the team here today. Over the past 5 months, the Climate Change Working Group has engaged in thoughtful debate and deliberate discussion of how to craft a holistic approach to climate action, seeking both to lead and to contribute to the collective power of the broader climate movement. Today's announcement is a testament to the thorough, creative, and collaborative process that led to this bold decision. Though our campaign began as a singular push for divestment from 200 fossil fuel companies with the largest reserves of oil, coal, and natural gas, the commitment announced today far surpasses divestment alone. We are investing in our collective vision of a future free from exploitative energy production and a political process corrupted by the influence of the fossil fuel industry. By taking this bold action, Pitzer is publicly recognizing our responsibility to act and challenging the status quo of investment, energy production, and institutional decision-making. My deepest thanks go out to President Trombley, Don Gould, and the Board of Trustees for listening and making this decision come to fruition, and the entire Claremont College's community for collaborating on this issue of critical importance. I'm overcome by immense pride. Pride in the passion and dedication of the divestment team, and in the incredible progress and power of the broader fossil fuel divestment movement. I am especially proud to be graduating on Pitzer's 50th anniversary, knowing that my college has made a commitment to provide for the future. The World Bank and the IPCC project global temperature rise beyond 4 degrees Celsius by 2100. If we continue on this path, the climate will be uninhabitable within my generation's lifetime. This crisis requires perpetual revolution. We cannot stop here. I hope Pitzer's commitment serves as a catalyst for further action across the Claremont Colleges and among our peer institutions. Let us continue to challenge the status quo, push the boundaries of what is possible, and prove that through collective action, we are capable of making great change. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, gosh, there's so much to say, and there's not enough time to say it, so I'll see if I can abbreviate what I'm feeling. Starting with the fact that, well, I guess primarily what I'm here for, the role I'm here for is to endorse and support this new initiative as a member of the Board of Trustees, so I do. And having said that, I was sitting there listening to the other speakers, and I was drawing from what they were saying. Excuse me, I've got allergies. I was listening to some of the thoughts, and some things jumped out. Social justice and environmental sustainability, coupling those two phrases, that stood out to me because I think that's part of our vision for the future. Challenging the status quo. That's another thing. The status quo, I don't think we can afford much longer considering the way the planet's been heading and the fight to preserve certain things that should not be preserved. I think has led to a kind of status quo, and I don't think we can afford that right now because the price is too great. And I was thinking about what you were saying about you don't look. Where are we going to look? Where are we going to look for leadership? Where are we going to look for support? And that includes money, endowment money, and so forth. But it also includes emotional and spiritual support. And we're not getting it from the top. We have, unfortunately, I think we can all see, no matter whether you're left or right on this, you see we're in a pretty polarized political environment, which is sad because then you take that phrase, the public interest, and it's sort of being tossed aside in favor of creating a war zone. Well, right now we just have a war zone in Washington. It's not doing anybody any good, the country or the public interest. So I guess I fall on the side of the public interest because we see that phrase used a lot. But what about it? Isn't it for us? Isn't the public interest the people? And if it is the people, what about us? Who's thinking about us? And then that takes me to where I think the thrust of my efforts is probably going to go, and that is that I think that considering where we are and what is left of this planet, which is not as much as we would hope, that we have to look at the new generation, which Jess is a noble part of. And I look to her and her colleagues to lead us into the future. We haven't done the greatest job of it, and we're going to be handing the reins over to this new generation. What are we going to be handing them? A diseased planet? Or a war zone of political thought in Washington? What are we going to be handing them? Then you look at what can we give them? And then that gets into the area of education and higher education. So having said that, that brings me, I guess, to the point why I'm here and will always be here for Pitzer. Give you a little background about my personal history. I grew up here. I think I've said this before, so I'll shorten it. But I grew up in Los Angeles at a time when Los Angeles was really a beautiful city. It was towards the end of the Second World War. Everyone was united with war bonds and paper drives and so forth. I was very much a part of that. I had family that was in the war and dying in the war. And so we were all united by this effort, a patriotic effort. And then I watched the city that I loved just sort of, it felt like it was disintegrating below my feet. It happened so fast. And suddenly the green spaces between Santa Monica and Brentwood, Westwood, Beverly Hills, Hollywood, and Los Angeles, the green spaces in between were shrinking in favor of concrete freeways, sky-rise buildings. In other words, there was no land use plan, there was no organized plan to take Los Angeles as a beautiful, wonderful place and keep it that way by developing it with reason. There was no reason. It was like a gold rush. And so I lost interest and then faith in the country, in the city that I grew up in. I went to the point of taking it personally. I moved away and I moved into a different kind of environment just so I could be in one. And I thought, well, there's nothing more I can do about the city that I love that has squandered its assets. Until this came along with Pitzer College and Laura, and the idea of, and I'm very honored that they used my name to create this sustainability Southern California Sustainability Initiative, they would pretty much focus starting in Los Angeles with what's left of it. So I'm happy about that. I agree with what else was said today. You don't give up. It's not a time to stop. And then we look at what we got to work with. So unfortunately, if you take the issue of climate change, we still have, the country seems to be divided into maybe 2-3 parts. You have people that are afraid of change. I see change as inevitable. And since it's inevitable, what are you going to do with it? You're going to try to go with it as best you can, try to turn it in a positive way as best you can. But there are those people who are afraid of change, and I think we know who those people are. And we can see the result of their resistance. And it's paralyzing a part of our country that needs to move forward at this point. So, having said that, I feel that I'm on the side of going with change. I'm on the side of any agency, any agent, any form that's going to push that forward, because we don't have a lot of time to lose. And when I think about some simple equation, just a simple picture that says, okay, we know we're a development-oriented society. We've been that way since, I guess, Manifest Destiny. We're going to develop what we can as fast as we can and make as much money as we can while doing it. But at the same time, are we going to be preserving anything for our survival? If not, then there won't be anything left. And so why bring children into the world? Why plan for their future? Why have colleges, education, if we're not planning for their future? So when I look at it that way, sort of big picture analysis, then I think, okay, well, where can we go to move things forward and inject some hope into our society by pointing an arrow at institutions that are doing what I think needs to be done right now, which takes me to Pitzer, and why I'm so proud and honored to be a part of this school as a trustee, and also be a part of its progressive movement, because I think right now we need it. We need it desperately, and we want to make education more attractive to young people. On a personal basis, I'm obviously very pro-art, and I believe that art has been treated like a trivial pursuit for too long, and I think it's a role that should be increased in our educational system. I think it has a value that should be recognized. So I kind of go in that direction, also nature. Those are my two focus points outside of my career. So Pitzer encompasses both, because what they've done here with this new initiative, they've exercised what I would call creative intellect. And boy, is that a great use of the mind. And look what they're doing, and look how fast they're doing it, which shows you don't have to sit around and wait. You don't have to think like a bureaucrat. You can move forward quickly if you have the right team, you have the right goal. I've said enough. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to start talking.
Thank you for coming. It's good to have all of you here.